I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the Delphi murders, a horrific crime in a small town involving two young girls who had their throats slashed. Prosecutors say it was a local CVS worker who did it, but the defense says it was a ritualistic killing by a group of Odinists. Here's the story. February 13th, 2017, an unseasonably warm day in the small rural town of Delphi, Indiana. It's not a place where you worry when your teenage children decide to go on an adventure. So when Abby Williams and her best friend Libby German decided to go on a hike near the Monon High Bridge in the middle of the day, no one gave it a second thought. But when the friends didn't show up for their ride home, their families began to worry and they began to search. Then the next day, the unimaginable. The girls' bodies were found, both victims of murder, one child naked and the other dressed in the other child's clothes. Their throats were slashed. 5 years after this brutal double murder, there was an arrest of the accused killer, Richard Allen. Allen claims he's innocent. He also alleges that it was a group of Odinists who were actually responsible, white nationalists practicing an ancient Nordic religion. The evidence in this case is being revealed inside of a courtroom as Richard Allen fights for his freedom and the public wonders what really happened to Abby and Libby. This story's so sad for these two girls and their families, the way they died, and their innocence. Their innocence of two girls. We've got a day off from school. We're just going to go, we're going to go by that Monon High Bridge, right? We're going to walk across the scary bridge. We're going to be outside, and you want your kids to go outside and do things outside, right? And then this happens. Now, from the beginning, very little information was released through the days, weeks, and years. Little pieces were a video was eventually released with a piece of audio, and it's only a couple of seconds long, but all throughout this investigation, this case, this story, this mystery, this was the person they referred to as the bridge guy, and this bridge guy was purportedly the killer. Let's take a look at that video.
Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
Now, all along, we suspected that there was more to this video that they weren't releasing for whatever reason, but more existed. And then when the probable cause affidavit came out after the arrest of Richard Allen, it seems we got a little more information about what is supposedly on this video. This is from the probable cause filing. The video recovered from victim 2's phone shows victim 1 walking southeast on the Monon High Bridge while a male subject wearing a dark jacket and jeans walks behind her. As the male subject approaches victim 1 and victim 2, one of the victims mentions gun. One of the victims, one of the girls, mentions gun. Near the end of the video, a male is seen and heard telling the girls, the audio you just saw, guys down the hill. They further believe he was carrying the Sig Sauer model P226 from the audio from victim 2's video, in which investigators believe they hear the sound of a gun being cycled and one of the victims mentioning gun. This was significant. This was so important. The video and the audio, you could hear the gun being cycled, and you heard the voice, and you saw the killer right behind the girls. So now the video's been shown once to the jury, and that brings me to my first question tonight, which is about the video. What does this video actually show? Okay? What does this video actually show? Important question, important piece of evidence, something that has loomed so large throughout this investigation and now through this trial. So let me bring in my guest. Joining me, Court TV senior producer Barbara McDonald and criminal defense attorney Bob Mata. Barbara and Bob have both been in the courtroom for this trial. Great to see you tonight. Okay, I want to put this, it's such a difficult but important aspect of the case for the jury ultimately, but I think for the public to try to figure out and trust what actually happened here. This is from the notes of the testimony of Sheriff Tony Liggett. Tony Liggett says Abby is heard on the video saying, "Is he right here? Don't leave me up here." So the sheriff is saying that Abby's saying on the video, "Is he right here? Don't leave me up here." The sheriff says that Libby can be heard saying, "That be a gun." He says the video ends with the man behind Abby saying, "Guys, down the hill." That's what the sheriff says. Barbara McDonald, what should we, like, we're not seeing the trial, no cameras, no microphones, I get it, they're not releasing evidence until way after this trial, when everything is resolved. What are your thoughts about what the sheriff says he saw and heard versus what was shown and what was saw and what you see and hear when you see the video?
I think there's going to be debate about what other people heard. I do agree with the sheriff. I saw the video. I did not see it played in court. I was not in court when that happened, but I have seen the video. And when I saw it, I definitely heard Abby saying something to the effect of, "Is he right there?" Because in the beginning of the video, he is some distance behind her. And towards the end of the video, he catches up to her. So as she's approaching the end of the bridge, it definitely sounded to me like she was saying something like, "Is he right there or is he still there?" Asking Libby, who is on the south side of the bridge, facing Abby and the man behind her. But I didn't hear the word gun. And talking with many people who were in the courtroom, they didn't hear either of the girls say the word gun either. So it'll be interesting what the jury heard if we get to hear from them individually about that video.
This is important evidence. Important evidence. And if it's, it seems like it's almost like something you have to listen to with headphones on to really understand.
That's what he said. He did listen to it that way, yes.
Okay. Now, these are notes from a reporter, Bob, who was inside the courtroom. This is what this reporter's saying that they heard. The reporter's notes. "See, this is the path. There's no path there, so we have to go down there." I guess that's one of the girls. "There's no path there, so we have to go down there." Then a man says, "Guys." One of the girls says, "Hi." Then a man's voice says, "Down the hill." "Guys, hi, down the hill." Bob Mata, that's what one person inside the courtroom heard. What did you?
That's exactly what I heard. So, but here's the thing, Vinny. They've played two versions of an enhanced video. So the one that Barbara's talking about is the one that they played most recently. So the day that they had the foundational witness on, the guy who had done the enhancements, they played a different video wherein that's exactly what I heard, and I didn't see. And remember, we're seeing this for 43 seconds. It gets played one time and it's gone. And you're trying to catch everything, right? You're looking at everything. You're trying to catch it. You're trying to digest it. What are they saying? What am I seeing? It's gone. And I don't see the camera ever come up from the point where Libby's got it pointed down at the gravel and down at the tracks. I see it come up for a brief flash. And I only see Abby. The next time they play it, when they have Liggett on the stand, it comes all the way up. I don't know how they did it. They said they stabilized it. I then see that image that we're looking at right there. You can see, as Barbara said, he had closed the gap substantially from the first time that I saw the video. So, because we've seen, in my estimation, Vinny, I've seen three versions of it. The original, the enhanced that didn't show the stabilized version, and then the full stabilized version. And I didn't hear anything about the gun, and I didn't hear Abby saying, is he still right behind me, or is he right behind me? I didn't hear either of those things. I think the question for me becomes, are the jurors going to get to have headphones on? Because there's no way you can hear that. I talked to 25 people in that courtroom, and no one heard those other words.
So the jury's not wearing headphones for this?
No.
Okay,
No.
let me ask you this. There's a man's voice saying guys, and there's a man's voice saying down the hill. In the middle, there's a girl's voice saying hi. Is it the same male voice, or is it possible that it's two different voices? Bob first.
Me? So, and Baldwin asked the question. He asked that question. He says, is it possible, is it preposterous is the word he used, to think that somebody could have just walked past Abby, got back to beyond where Libby was, and that somebody was standing there, or that somebody had come up the left side of the tracks? It was standing there, implying that maybe there were two people. Because the important point is, at least from the defense perspective, is that you cannot see Bridge Guy's mouth move. They have no way of really proving that he's the one saying it at all. Like, there's no way, you cannot see the man's mouth move. So, Liggett's like, well, I disagree with you, because that doesn't make any sense. Like, the odds of somebody else being there makes no sense. But does it? I mean, and you're so right, Vinny, because this video is the case. Bridge Guy
is the case.
Is the case.
Barbara,
the case.
Was there any difference in the voices? Did you hear any difference? Is it a possibility in your mind?
There's other sounds. There's the gravel that Libby is standing on, and that at that point in the video, Abby is on it as well. There's the wind and all of that. You don't see the man's face when those words are spoken. It sounded to me like it might be one person, but I don't know if it's the person who was behind them or somebody else who could potentially have been there at the time.
Wow. The purpose of a trial is to get the truth out. I'm just praying that it's happening out there in Delphi. All right, guests are staying with us. Coming up next, was Richard Allen's car caught on video?
You want to know what we know? Well, one day, you will.
No man is born evil.
So you chose bad. On the next Interview with a Killer. You created the plan.
I didn't actually shoot her.
You did murder her, though.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Did it occur to you that you had just gone from troubled teen to teenage murderer? What was the plan?
She needed payback.
Payback with her life?
Interview with a Killer. New episode Sunday, 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
To the killer, who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We likely have interviewed you, or someone close to you. We know that this is about power to you. And you want to know what we know. And one day, you will. A question to you. What will those closest to you think of when they find out that you brutally murdered 2 little girls? 2 children. Only a coward would do such a thing.
That's before the arrest of Richard Allen. And you look at it in retrospect, I don't think they knew anything, right? Because they had to find this old tip from years ago that was never pursued, and then go after Richard Allen hiding in plain sight at the CVS. But they didn't know who he was. They really didn't have much of anything to go on at that point. Seemed to be a little bit of a bluff. But they did have some surveillance video, right? And timeline is important in all this, because Richard Allen admits he was there. I mean, he self-reported that he was there that day. But to get there from where he lived and worked, he would need to drive there at some point. So take a look at this from the probable cause affidavit. Investigators observed a vehicle that resembled Allen's 2016 Ford Focus on the Hoosier Harvest store video at 1:27 p.m. traveling westbound on 300 North in front of the Hoosier Harvest store, which coincided with his statement that he arrived around 1:30 at the trails, trying to put together this timeline. Richard Allen's timeline has shifted a little bit, according to prosecutors. So this is an important question, right? And this is like evidence that a jury could really sink their teeth into. Now let's take a look at my next question, which is, was Richard Allen's car caught on video? Right? If you capture the car on video, you can lock someone in to a timeline. So important in trying to put together a case, especially when the timeline is in question to a certain extent. Still with me, Barbara McDonald and Bob Motta. I want to go through two more things, and then I want you guys to take over from there. Tony Liggett, again, the sheriff, saying that he did research into Richard Allen after they got that old tip. Allen had a handgun permit, but Allen had two cars registered to his name, a 2006 Ford 500, big four-door sedan, and a 2016 black Ford Focus. Also found out that he was employed at the CVS. So the sheriff went to the CVS and took pictures of Richard Allen's car. His car was backed into the parking spot at the CVS. The car seen on the day of the murder was backed into the parking spot, so that's sort of consistent in the way you park. And a car with the matching description was seen on the Hoosier Harvest store camera at 1:27 p.m., February 13th, 2017. Barbara McDonald, why is it just matching the description? We've got a video. Was it or was it not caught on video? Like, why can't you match a video to a car in the middle of the day?
Because, well, they didn't see the license plate and they couldn't identify the driver of that vehicle. When Richard Allen was interviewed by police in October of 2022, 2 weeks prior to his arrest, he said that when he went to the trails, he typically traveled from town, which is an easterly direction. This car was traveling west to the parking area at the old CPS lot. But again, they can only say that the car matches. One of the questions the jurors had for the witness about this was, did they check how many other Ford Focuses are registered to people in the area? And Steve Mullen, who was the police chief of Delphi Police at the time the murder happened, and now is the lead investigator for the prosecutor, said, no, they didn't get that information. So we don't know how many Ford Focuses might have been in the area or are registered to people who live in the area.
Okay, so Bob Motta, I mean, at a minimum, so it's the same make and model that everyone's that matches here? It's a Ford Focus, and you may not know the year, but at least the make and model are similar. And was there anything distinct about the wheels of the car?
Yeah, I mean, it's the state's position that it's a match. You know, the problem is they don't actually have the video, Vinny. They have a still. For whatever reason, they did not.
Wait. Say that again. Say that again.
They don't have the actual video. But I think what they're left with is a still. That's what they have. Are you hearing the same thing, Barbara? They don't have the video, correct?
Well, I think they went back and got the video in 2022. But in 2017, when Steve Mullen first went to the Hoosier Harvest store, when he found out they had this surveillance video established, this camera set up on the roadway, he didn't take the video. He simply took stills on his phone of the video. Then once they circled back to Richard Allen in 2022, they went back to the store and asked to have the video, and I think that's when they got the video. It has not been played. We have not seen that video, nor have we seen that still.
Right. I mean, how are they not playing the video? If they have the video, isn't that the best evidence? Like, where's the video? Why are we not seeing the video? Like, Vinnie, this case, and Barbara will attest, this case is the case that should have been streamed to the world because it's that case. This case is, in my estimation, an absolute true whodunit, and the world needs to see this case. This is the reason we have transparency in trials in this country. And this thing is being tried in the dark. It's like, and we're all doing the very best we can, every single one of us, Barb, everybody else that's in there, diligently taking notes. We're probably missing things that we'd otherwise be able to observe. How are witnesses acting on the stand? Because I'm looking down at my pad of paper because I'm acting as a stenographer.
Well, you know what's interesting? You know what's interesting, Bob? Like, what it does is it turns anyone who's in that courtroom, you're almost all in the same position as the jury. And now we know how hard it is to be a juror, don't we?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Another key point, Vinnie, about that video is you would think if they have video of his car arriving and he's traveling westbound, that's also the direction that they claim he was walking at 4 p.m. or just before 4 p.m. to get back to his car. And we don't have any video of him walking.
Wow. All right, a lot more to get to.
None of him walking, Vinnie.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the Delphi murders, a case that is beyond heartbreaking. Two young girls enjoying a day from school and ended up being brutally murdered in the woods. Then it takes 5 years to solve, and some people believe there's much more to this that is being hidden. Here's the story. Teenagers Abby Williams and Libby German were best friends living in the small rural community of Delphi, Indiana. On February 13th, 2017, the girls had a day off from school, so they decided to go on an outdoor adventure. They were dropped off near the Monon High Bridge, and while on that bridge, Libby recorded a man with her phone, uttering the words, "It was down the hill where Libby and Abby would be murdered. Prosecutors say the man on the bridge is responsible, and that man is Richard Allen." But Allen and his attorney say prosecutors have it all wrong. They say Allen is innocent, and it was someone else on the bridge that day who took the lives of these two innocent girls. And now, as the evidence is revealed inside a courtroom, the public waits for the answer. And that answer will be filtered through the people who are able to report on this, because cameras have been banned by the judge. Judge doesn't want the public to see this trial. Neither do prosecutors, by the way. But here we are in Indiana with all of this. Now, there's a witness who extremely important in all of this, and his name is Dan Doolin. And I want you to take a look. This is from the notes from testimony in the case. Dan Doolin works for the Conservation Office for the Department of Natural Resources. What's his role in all of this? Well, he was like a volunteer assistant to the investigators. This is the biggest case that's ever come out of Delphi. They have very small number of people able to help, so they're calling on everyone to help, and so Dan Doolin helps. He was given a list of leads to follow up on, okay? So he gets the list. This list contained a tip called in from Richard Allen Whiteman. Now, his name is Richard Allen, and he lives on a street called Whiteman, but it was called in and written as Richard Allen Whiteman, saying that he was on the trail the day the girls were reported missing. So Richard Allen called into the tip line himself to say, listen, I was there. What? That brings me to my next question. This is a real important one. This is the guy accused of the murder. Why did Richard Allen call the tip line? Why would He put himself at the scene of the most notorious crime in the history of this small community. Why did Richard Allen call the tip line? You know the defense will bring this up as being somewhat counterintuitive. But let's talk about it. Still here, Court TV senior producer Barbara McDonald is with us, and the YouTube live streamer behind Gray Hughes Investigates, who's been all over this story from the beginning. Gray Hughes is with us. Gray, why would Richard Allen call the tip line if this is the guy responsible for this brutal double murder?
Well, the defense is going to say that he was just being this really helpful guy, you know, just being a pillar of the community. But I think what the reality is that when he passed the three girls, see, Richard Allen has a job at the CVS pharmacy, so he thought maybe the three girls might recognize him, but he probably at that point wasn't that paranoid. However, I've always had a theory that he called the tip line because he saw his image in the news or in articles. And I wasn't able to I didn't know what date that Richard Allen called the tip line, but now we know. See, Richard Allen called the tip line on February 16th, 2017, and on the 15th is when the image of Bridge Guy came out. And guess what it said in the articles about that? It said, investigators want to talk with him about what he may have seen. So they weren't trying to scare him away. They wanted to come forward. So Richard Allen obliged them because he knows that's him in the image, and he calls the police and, you know, calls the tip line. And, you know, he first is Richard Allen Whiteman, and then Dan Doolin meets with him, and he's the one that clarified that it's actually Richard Allen who lives on Whiteman Drive, and then Kathy Shank did the same thing. But he told Dan Doolin that he was there from 1 to 3 o'clock at the bridge, and then he switched it to 1:30 to 3:30, and then that he passed three girls. And now that surveillance that you were just talking about with the previous segment or earlier was that you see the car drive by the Hoosier Harvest Store at 1:27, and the rims match. And it drives by, and then right after that, he passes the three girls. He saw them, they saw him, and that puts him right there. And they all said the person they saw is Bridge Guy. So Richard Allen is basically admitting that he is Bridge Guy. There you go.
And the irony is, though, if he doesn't call, I don't think the case ever gets solved. I don't think there's ever an arrest. I don't think they would have tracked him down. I want to put this up. More of the testimony that Gray was referring to. Dan Doolin met with Richard Allen in a grocery store parking lot for an unrecorded 10-minute meeting. First says 1 to 3, then he says 1:30 to 3:30. Allen says he saw three girls at the Freedom Bridge, then walked to the High Bridge. Allen told him he parked at the Farm Bureau building, but Doolin thinks that he meant the old CPS building. Allen mentioned he wasn't paying much attention. He was watching a stock ticker on his phone. Doolin collected his phone information, typed up his notes, and sent it to the investigators. Kathy Shank, you mentioned her as well, important. Another investigation volunteer, took calls from the tip line, wrote down information, and forwarded it to the detectives. She organized boxes of reports. September 2020, she was asked to scan the files into a database, a process which took 2 years. September 2022, she found a lead sheet saying that Richard Allen reported being on the trails and seeing the three girls. Caught her attention because three girls had also seen a man on the trails. But the tip sheet had the word, quote, cleared on it. What? The tip sheet said cleared? Who wrote that? Nevertheless, Kathy Shank still brought it to Tony Liggett. Barbara McDonald, there's a couple problems here. Number one, he self-reports and says he's there. There's no follow-up. And to the exact opposite, somebody cleared him? Do we know who cleared Richard Allen on that tip sheet?
We don't. Another point that the defense, I think, could have made a bigger issue of, and they didn't, is that Richard Allen said he saw 3 girls, but the witnesses that testified, we found out it was 4 girls. There were 3 teenagers, and one of the girls had her younger 9-year-old sister with her. So it was actually 4 girls that were at the Freedom Bridge when these girls saw this bridge guy. And the defense attorney did ask one of the witnesses, like, is it possible that Richard Allen was there earlier and saw 3 different girls? And I believe it was investigator Mullen who testified he didn't think that was possible. But that's also another weird fact about this. Is it 3 girls or is it 4 girls?
Gray Hughes, getting back to your theory, which to me makes a ton of sense, they release a still picture, right? It's not, so at that point, I don't think anyone knows that there's an actual video and audio recording of the bridge guy. So if you're the bridge guy, like, hey, they caught my image in the background of a still photo, not knowing that there's other potential evidence, like guys down the hill, the potential of someone saying gun, all of that they withheld, investigators did. And I'm wondering if they had released the video, if he still would have come forward. I would say maybe likely not if he's the killer, because he knows what he said and what he did, and he wouldn't know how much more video there is, because he's thinking it's just a still.
Yeah, I think he was absolutely paranoid. When he saw that image of himself, he wanted to get ahead of it. And that happens quite often in cases where the criminal will insert themselves into the case, and I think that's exactly what he was doing. And you got to remember, one of the things that he said was when I think it was Tony Liggett showed him a picture of himself. He said, "Hey, is this you, the bridge guy?" You know what Richard Allen said? He said, "Well, if the girl took the picture, then that's not me." So it's like, well, let me ask you something. So you're really saying it is me, however, I can't say it is, because if I do, then I'll be accused of murder, right? I mean, who answers a question like that saying, well, if the girl took the picture, it's not me? I mean, you would look at the picture and go, yeah, that's not me. Look, he's got the pants there. That's, you know, it doesn't look like me at all. And then also something that Barbara just said a minute ago, those same 4 girls cleared the bridge in Richard Allen's second alibi. I want to get this out there. Those girls were at the bridge at 12:43, and that means they got there to the Freedom Bridge probably at, like 12:20. They walked the whole trail, went to the bridge, and all the way back at 126 of the bench, and they didn't see Richard Allen, and he said he was there from 12 to 1:30. They would have seen him, okay? So they actually are effectively clearing the entire trail, even during his secondary alibi time frame. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Barbara, when we talk about bridge guy versus the killer, we've always presumed that. The way it's playing in the courtroom, is it clear to that jury? Is it clear to the folks in the courtroom that bridge guy equals killer? Or is there anyone, perhaps the defense or anyone else, saying, well, there could be another person involved here?
It's unclear what's in the jurors' heads right now. We did get some testimony that some of the experts who were consulted on this case have not been able to rule out the possibility that more than one person was involved. And so in that case, is bridge guy necessarily the killer? If more than one person is involved, he might not be the actual killer. He now could be a participant. And if you remember, Richard Allen is charged with intentional murder as well as felony murder. So if he took part in any way, he could still be guilty of the charges that he's accused of.
Wow. Big thank you to Barbara McDonald and, of course, Gray Hughes. Check out Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. In-depth coverage of this case. It's fascinating stuff. Thank you so much. Still to come, we've heard all about all these confessions, but we're going to talk about one in particular and ask the question, was this his first confession?
Richard Allen, you child murderer! Why did you do it?
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
The Burn Pile Murder Trial. We're getting you ready for each day as we head toward a verdict. Plus, deeper dives into true crime stories with our daily spotlight.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
That. He's like, what did you mean by that? And what he said was, well, you had shut down my street. You started interviewing all my neighbors and asking them, if they had seen me that day. You went to my coworkers. You were telling everybody that I was the murderer. You had ruined my life. Like that was his explanation for it. And for me, that tracks. I mean, they had flame thrown the guy's life. I mean, can you imagine? They're going to your neighbors. And this is before they announced an arrest. They had already gone and started talking to his coworkers and his neighbors in the neighborhood the day of the search. They'd already been searching his house. I mean, it's that kind of thing where this is a very small community. And if that kind of thing's going on, as you can imagine, people are going to talk immediately. So that was what came out during the testimony.
Dr. Daniel Bober, your thoughts about this alleged first confession? What are the important aspects to consider in this statement, which, he explained later on, it doesn't matter, it's over in the moment.
Vinny, this case is bizarre from the beginning, right? And it really depends on how you tell the story, right? Just like with him calling into the tip line, right? So if you're the prosecution, you say he calls into the tip line because he's covering his tracks. But if you're the defense, you say, why wouldn't he call the tip line? He's an innocent person. And this is the same kind of situation. It all depends on how you interpret it. If you're the prosecution, you call it a confession. If you're the defense, you say, hey, the guy's life is ruined. He's under scrutiny. He's basically been called a murderer in the press. And he's basically saying it's all over. So I actually agree with that interpretation. I think it does fit and it does make sense under the circumstances.
Dr. Bober, let me ask you a follow-up question. There's an allegation that there's many confessions, and we'll be talking about them throughout our coverage of this case. From your perspective, what makes, let's look at it one way, then we'll look at it another way, but what makes a killer finally give in and admit what they did? What would drive a killer to do that?
I think when confronted with such overwhelming evidence of guilt, I think very often killers will confess because they know it literally is over at this point. But there are a number of troubling aspects of this case. There's a lot of holes that I think the defense can exploit, given the fact there's very little tying him to the victims except for that unspent shell casing. There's no DNA. There's no evidence.
Right,
of
the
sexual
physical
assault.
evidence is a little sketchy. Let me ask you one more before we run out of time, though, while I have your expertise here. False confession. What are your thoughts about what would drive someone to give a false confession?
Well, certainly there are cases of that. There are people that are mentally ill that do want to take credit for a crime because they enjoy the attention. They enjoy, being in the media. So that does happen as well, and that's a completely different situation.
Well, I want to thank both of you. We're a little short on time, but we'll be covering this again and again. Bob Motta, Dr. Daniel Bober, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Confessions are compelling evidence. It's also direct evidence. But not all confessions are created equal. And unfortunately, through the years, we have seen blatantly false confession given by weakened defendants being manipulated by law enforcement. It happened a few years ago in a case we covered here on Court TV. Skylar Richardson gave a false confession about burning her baby. She didn't do it. The baby wasn't burned. But like any other piece of evidence, the credibility of a confession is crucial to get a conviction. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues.